Oh, this conversation was a little too personal growth, business growth. Hello, welcome. I'm Shannon Elizabeth Eastman, and I am the host of the Work That Matters podcast. Like I said, conversations at the intersection of personal growth and business growth. I've just had a really great exchange with Alison Butters on why is it that being seen has us in hiding. And the truth is, I think I'm in hiding myself right about now at the time of this conversation. I think it's the 10th of March, 2021. And I am certainly in my own little wee transition as I resolve the next chapter. The discomfort is wonderful. So, Alison, what a beautiful soul. I asked her to come and talk about her personal experience with showing up and being seen as an expert in her area, and the three things that have kept her from doing just that for quite some time. And it's actually only in the last month that she has decided to jump into the big blue ocean. But we looked at the three things that were most dominant, most influential in keeping her back. This conversation is more like you're not the only one, that there are a lot of other people who are uncomfortable at the idea of being seen for all sorts of glorious human reasons. And so it's my intention with this particular conversation that Alison's shift from being a corporate wizard to stepping into her own space to show up as a coach who facilitates an individual in the area of their self-evolution to do exactly as she's done, as authentically and as candidly as she presents it, encourages you and comforts you and makes you feel like, not that you're not the only one, but that it's absolutely normal and par for the course to have those little wobbles show up when you're ready to take center stage. Alison is lovable. She's easy to love. And we've included her links, her website, in an article that we asked her to write off the back of this exchange. We talked about standing on the side of the pool of all the ick. Being seen, other people's opinions of me. What are they going to say? Am I good enough? But the article is, what's it like swimming in that pool? I have a feeling there'll be a part 2 to this coming soon. So I'm going to just own it and say this is part 1 of 2. Enjoy it, take comfort from it, and act when you're good and ready. It is really great to have you on the show. Alison, thank you for being here. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Shannon. And it's just an absolute privilege to have this time with you. It really is. And I really welcome the opportunity. So thank you so much.
I am loving this topic. What is it about being seen that has us in hiding? Oh my goodness. I observe, experience, and see it in a lot of areas where I work. I know you do too. And I know today you have wanted to come here and explore the 3 reasons why you perceive you have been in hiding as a result of expecting or desiring to be seen. And so thank you. This is going to be a really authentic and personal exchange, but I think one that's really important and shared amongst the majority, not just the minority.
Yeah, I share that too. And it's the uncomfortableness that I've been through, especially in the last couple of weeks when I've fully taken away any shield and stepped out. I'm really happy's not a word I like, it's a little bit anodyne, but I'm really glad that the value of what I'm sharing, if that just helps one person, then that has been worthwhile. I am still in the ick. I am not through it. I'm in the middle of it.
Yep.
but I'm a lot better with it. And it's a lifetime's work. I think it is opening a Pandora's box. You have no idea what we're going to be dealing with once you open that box, and you have to be prepared. That introspection is tough, and I
Yes.
think that's what makes it really uncomfortable.
And so important um, to do. I think the quality of the ick upgrades as you move deeper into becoming the best version of yourself. I don't think it ever goes away, but um, you can befriend it and you can dance with it so that it's not necessarily you versus it, or in
Yeah,
this case, ick.
yeah.
Um, but you get to spar with it and make it an advisor and a consultant, a strategist. Let's throw these three things out because, we wanted to explore what are the three core reasons that had you in hiding at the idea, I almost want to say at the audacity of being seen. And the three that you had presented that were
Yeah.
most intrinsic for you. Uh, the first one was lack of self-worth. The
Yeah,
second one, other people's opinions. And the third one, which I think is so great for you to label here, is credibility. So again, lack of self-worth, other people's opinions, and credibility. Where do we begin?
well, for me, I think we might as well just pull the plaster off with the credibility.
Go
We
on.
might as well, if we're going in, we go all in. I'm not a person of half measures, so
Let's do
let's
it.
just pull the plaster off. Yeah, for credibility, for me, because of the way that I was for most of my adult life, I was far too focused on my professional cloak, as I would call it. People
Yes,
call it a mask. I call it a cloak. And I felt that if people actually saw what was behind that, they would think, hang on a minute, what is she doing helping and supporting other people? When you've got all of these, when I didn't have the quality of doing that inner work at that time and the responsibilities I had in my corporate roles, I felt that my credibility would be the square root of absolutely, I'll be polite, nothing at that point in time if they saw what I was actually feeling. And that's what made me put up that front and pick up that shield and make sure I stood firmly behind it. And nothing personal or professional permeated that shield.
understood. It's the word that came to mind is uh it's almost like a feeling like you're a hypocrite.
Yeah,
You're facilitating an individual in a particular space, and yet you yourself are feeling, who am I to facilitate, Johnny over there when I have so much work to do on it myself?
exactly. And when authenticity is one of my main values, along with honesty and growth and contribution, I felt that lack, I wasn't then being authentic, it was a visceral thing for me because I was jarring against my own value system.
For
So
sure.
not only I had this conflict, but then I had a conflict on a conflict.
Uh,
So it was just like a little war of attrition every day with myself. And
yeah.
that's what it
Tough.
was like.
That's tough. It's there's two things that I've been pondering or reflecting on for the last couple of years, and one of them in particular with a friend, a dear friend of mine, Dr. Kim Jobst, and this idea that I'm going to refer to it as self-actualization, just to
Yeah,
keep a specific label on it so we can stay in the conversation. But if you were to imagine that the process or the journey of self-actualization is kind of like a spiral staircase
yeah.
that is three-dimensional, so not linear and
Mhm.
just wrapping around itself, but it's like a globe. Then all these different rungs on that particular spherical ladder are important to step onto. And my discussion with Dr. Kim over the last couple of years has been this idea that, we're all able to facilitate an individual who maybe is two or three rungs down the ladder from us.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there comes a challenge when you are trying to facilitate someone who's 3 rungs above you, because
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't necessarily work
Uh-huh.
in that dynamic, but we're always able to facilitate an individual who's 3 rungs below us
Uh-huh.
while we're not having to show up perfect
Mm-hmm.
on the rung 146.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and then the other idea that I really appreciate and been looking into a lot over the last 5 years is the idea of the wounded healer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and the idea that, you know, healer, the facilitator, the coach, the advisor, is probably more potent and effective when there are his or her own wounds that are present within that person, things like empathy and insight and understanding. Um, so going to credibility, absolutely, probably one of the top 3 that keeps us hiding from being seen until we can see that our service is not for everybody and their mother, but it's for the version of us maybe 5 years ago,
Yeah.
where we can say, you know what?
Mm-hmm.
Here's a couple of ways of transforming or transitioning through that tough patch,
Yeah.
that are authentic and valuable to that person who's about to set off on that exact situation.
Definitely. And that's a really beautiful analogy in terms of empathy, etc. And I think this is where the distinction came for me when I became a coach, because I really needed to clean my own house,
Mm,
because coaching is a different profession in the fact that you are I can only take clients as deep as I'm prepared to go. And if I'm going to be authentic, I have to go into those difficult places because I have no idea where I'm going to go in a session with a client. So it's that clearing out. I'm not perfect. I'm not a finished article. I put work in myself every day. But I think that's when finally I had to pull the plaster off and deal with it
yeah,
because of the nature. I'm holding somebody's hand to go to a place where they may not have gone before. So
yeah.
I have to have the inner resolve to be able to do that. And
But then
I'm
it
not,
goes to your second of the 3, which is the lack of self-worth.
yeah, yeah,
And the coaches and the facilitators and the healers um, get to facilitate for other people what they have to do for themselves.
yeah, yeah,
And resolving your own self-worth allows you to be of value to another person to do it. But one of the beautiful things, so I say to small business owners in particular, not coaches and consultants, advisors and healers, very similar, but opting into the path of self-employment or small business ownership is probably the fastest, most efficient route to self-actualization you can hit, because it is in that you really get to see what you're made of,
yeah,
all the wobbly and the ick bits,
yeah.
so that you
Totally.
can transform it
Mhm.
and heal it and clear it and become the better version of you that gets to serve ever increasing numbers of people higher and higher and higher up that spherical ladder.
Yes.
Um, So credibility, huge one. Self-worth or lack thereof. And then the third one that you presented was other people's opinions. Boom. So tell me about other people's opinions.
Yeah. Other people's opinions, if I can reframe it now, I think because of the other two, the correlation between the
Yeah.
credibility and the self-worth, now if somebody's got an opinion, that's great. But I've reversed it around because of that inner work. And people are entitled to be wrong about me. But I come from a place of intent and good intent. So when somebody now has an opinion, do I respect the question I ask myself is, do I respect that person enough to value that opinion? So I've sort of diffused other people's opinions. I love feedback, don't get me wrong. I love feedback, But when there's a negativity or something, I've got that inner resilience now not to be impacted in terms of how I probably would have been 18 months, 2 years ago.
I
So other
have,
people's opinions don't have the same
hold,
value and
yeah,
hope.
I have um, a love and affection for Breen Brown on one of her comments
Mhm.
that I just love. When I saw it, I was like, yeah, baby, you know it.
Yeah,
Unless you're also in the ring getting your ass kicked too,
yeah,
I don't want your opinion.
yeah.
That's one of Breen's, and uh, definitely resonates with me. And then I had an opportunity through a project I was doing with some of Osho's work.
Mhm,
Book is called Courage, The Joy of Living Dangerously.
mhm.
And I remember the back of the book, it says the rebellion is not new. Enlightened rebellion is completely new. And it
Mhm.
was this really interesting process that I went through to fall deeply, madly, truly in love with me. Which by contrast, in the run up to that experience, I definitely was not my biggest friend or advocate. So I went through that really interesting time. It was June 2011, where I was able to fall deeply in love with me and came out the other side with this freedom that other people's opinions of me were none of my business. And then a few years later, I altered that little quote a little bit more to say, other people's opinions of me are none of my business, but my reaction to those opinions are totally my business. And I think I was able to find this really beautiful space for two reasons. One, everyone that I observe and experience in my reality is a mirror image of me.
Yeah.
So
Ah,
I can see that
mhm,
I am that person, and I
mhm.
can see in my life where I demonstrate traits of that person. But then the other thing that I've had a deep appreciation of is the unconscious programs, which
Yeah.
is, if I were asked what are the three things that keeps us in hiding from
Mhm,
being seen, the unconscious programs would be one. And when I would got to a deeper understanding of unconscious programs and how they run our lives, like 99% of us are unconscious.
yes. Yeah,
We only operate with 1% of the deck of cards.
yeah.
And my appreciation of our unconscious programs has shown me that people see what they are, not
Mhm,
necessarily what is actuality. And
mhm,
so, a really brief story, because this was the moment when I realized I'd really landed in a place in myself that I didn't think I'd ever get to. I was at an event in London at the Bloomsbury Hotel, and a dear friend of mine were going for dinner, and there was
mhm,
another person there that I wanted to meet and know, and so
mhm.
we'd invited her to dinner to join us, and so we're sat at a table. It's in Great Portland Street. It's called Istanbul. It's probably one of the most fantastic Turkish restaurants
Yeah.
I know of in London.
Uh-huh.
And as I was sat next to this woman that I really wanted to get to know, a beautiful woman who didn't mean any malice by this, but was just authentically letting me know that she really couldn't stand me. She didn't like what I represented. She didn't like how I
Uh-huh.
carried myself. And she didn't really get the high energy or maybe the level of intensity that I operated in.
Mhm.
And as I was sat next to her, hearing this feedback face to face from a woman who's a really beautiful soul, I had no desire to change her opinion or correct her or make her like
Mhm.
me or present all this evidence to say, no, you're wrong. I'm really good. I'm this and I'm lovely and you should love me. I had no desire, but I could just sit with her and appreciate that the experience that she was having of me was really important for her journey.
Mhm. Yeah.
And this idea that I didn't need her to like me to feel good about myself.
Yeah.
And that was everything. That showed me I've done the work to
Yeah.
get to that point where I could just be in her presence with empathy and love and know that it's not that she didn't like me, but I wasn't her favorite person, let's be honest. So that was really, really powerful for me.
that personal zenith sounds incredible. And once we get to that point,
Mm.
it can't be
Liberating.
described in words.
It's liberating, really
It's so
liberating.
liberating and freeing.
Um, I, I feel prompted to share a situation I have right now where I am struggling to be seen, or I don't want to be seen. And it's this area. So I work, personal growth is deeply important to me. It's been a large part of my life's work for, I'd say, since age 13.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I'm quite accomplished in it to a degree. And then there's this other side of me that's very much about business growth. And I get excited and energy and I light up and I'm full of ideas when I'm in that business growth space. And I've explored over the last 6 months the idea of bringing those two things together.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes my butt pucker thinking about it,
Mm-hmm.
because I have this idea that if I'm seen doing all the personal growth stuff that is near and dear and important to me, it saved my life
Mm-hmm.
many times over, that I won't be taken seriously on the business front.
Yeah.
That somehow the market that I really want to be in service to will judge me and be like, well, I'm not sure I want one of those fucking things in my life.
Yeah.
And so I've been keeping them separate for so long, and my mind rationalizes it and says, well, you're a really good marketer, you know your markets, you know
Yeah.
how to communicate inside a language specific to your target market, and that target market doesn't want anything to do with personal growth. Bullshit, that's not true. But I'm struggling. I'm in this really interesting place of transition right now where I would describe it as I'm wanting to make sure that I'm not doing a Jonah in the whale.
Mm-hmm.
God says to Jonah, I need you to do this. And Jonah's like, nope, not having it. And
Yeah.
then eventually Jonah ends up in the whale's belly and then finally says, all right, I'll do what you want. And then the whale spits it up on the shore.
Mm-hmm.
I've been in the whale's belly 100 times, maybe more. I don't want to go there again. I want
Yeah.
to surrender and be present to what is. But I still have this, I want to keep them separate. I only want this group of people to know that I do personal growth. I want that. So yeah, as part of this whole, I guess mine would be, I think it's other people's opinions that would put my business growth in jeopardy.
Yeah.
So, um,
You
I,
feel that it would be stymied at some point because of that, because there is a dichotomy, isn't there? People that put something, and I don't use that term, but that put something under the woo-woo category, and then you've got your little corporate box, and the two shouldn't meet.
yeah,
However, there's an amazing interaction, and they absolutely go together, but people think somehow performance, which is a broad umbrella, is going to be impacted if you do the woo woo. You won't be able to do that,
yeah,
which
it's challenging myself to, I'm hearing the words of Miss Cheryl Chapman, a
Mhm.
lovely lady. I love you so much.
She's
She's,
an amazing person.
oh, do you know her?
I do.
Oh, I just love that woman so much.
Incredible.
And I can hear her lovely Newcastle. Is she the Newcastle or,
She's got a northeast accent.
oh,
Yes, definitely.
no, I won't even try to do it. Asking me to chunk
Yeah,
up to the point where they're both synthesized and integrated,
yeah,
chunk up.
yeah.
And I think I'm 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 settling into this space of chunking up so that they can both be present.
Mhm.
I do have this dialogue that I can't mix them because what will my business community think?
Yeah.
And yet, let's be honest, if you know me for 5 minutes, you know that I'm a bit fucking bonkers anyway. So you wouldn't see it and you wouldn't be surprised probably, but yeah, I can feel it's very uncomfortable inside me.
Yeah.
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 So I wanted to just wrap this up. You put an article out in the last few days that is bloody brilliant.
Thank you.
I think we should grab it and pull it in, but I also know that I've asked you to put a wee blog post together to build on this exchange that we've just had. So I'd like you to continue doing that. So if you wanted to get more of Alison and what she's about and where she is, there's some links below that you can tap into. Her social media profiles are there, and a link to her articles that she wrote. Alison, what are your final thoughts on this exchange for anyone listening right now who knows that they have something in them, that they want to be in service, but being seen is making them go, yeah, I'm not sure I'm cut out for it. What's your counsel?
It's not going to be a popular answer, but it's about action. That you've identified the work that you've done, the work that I've done. You can do all of that introspection. That awareness is hugely important, and you've got to know where those things come from. But the only conversion, the only time that that starts to dissipate and you actually increase your self-actualization is by doing it. And it was Dr. Erin Baker in a session a couple of weeks ago, and that's where get with the ick. I've been doing this for 3 weeks now, and it
Yeah,
is really tough.
the ick is way out.
Yeah, it's so counterintuitive because your brain is just screaming, why are you, what are you doing? Just get back, just get out of the arena. It's not a good place to be. What's going to happen? And all of that osmosis and that drowning of those past behaviors, as a neuro-linguistic practitioner, as you've identified, get to know those programs. Once you unlock those, that subconscious shouldn't be holding you back. So there's different levels. Get to a point of understanding, do that inner work, but in conjunction with that inner work, there's a symmetry about taking action. And then it becomes easier. It doesn't become any less uncomfortable. You've just got to put your big girl pants on, jump in the arena and say, this is me.
Yeah.
And deal with it. And that's, people probably want a more profound answer, but that's where it comes to.
The ick is definitely the way out. I would add that the moment you get into meaningful action is the moment you trigger your fear, shame, and guilt as like the three cool kids that love you and adore you that are showing up going, hey, baby, you know, this fear, shame, and guilt that's showing up in this particular moment of you being in action is an invitation for you to go to the exact place in your unconscious self to find the root of that thing so that it can be seen and healed and integrated within you so that you get to grow into the version of you that gets to facilitate the 5,000 people at some conference in Petra, Jordan, for example.
Yeah.
You know, you have to grow into it, becoming, I feel like there should be a part 2 to this conversation, but we've actually run over time a wee bit, but I think it was worth it. I'm so grateful that you have, you know, shown up, danced with your fear and shame and all the ick. You're swimming in it. I get that. Having this conversation about what it's been like for you and what you've done.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yes, it's not a dalliance. We're in a full out tango now, but I'm not letting go.
I love it. Alison, thank you so much for being here. God bless.
Thank you, Shannon. That was amazing.
The Work That Matters podcast, it's brought to you by ShannonEastman.com.